नमस्कार. हेलो एंड वेलकम टू दिस वेरी स्पेशल सीरीज. आप सभी को मकर संक्रांति की बहुत बहुत शुभकामनाएं. वेरी मेनी विशेस ऑफ द वेरी ऑस्पिशियस ओकेजन ऑफ मकर संक्रांति, which where the sun takes the northward trajectory, and today we are initiating a very important series of deliberations. एक सप्ताह का ज्ञान यज्ञ which will in the modern working days of 5 days, 15th to 19th of January. And this commemoration is being named as the World Education Forum. And somewhere or the other, it has been inspired from a similar such a mammoth intellectual undertaking which goes on in the Swiss Alps every year in the first or the second week of January, which is the World Economic Forum. It was established on 24th of January in the year 1971. And as serendipity would have it, Rethink India started getting inspired from this power of original thought process. Rethink India started in the year 2021, just after the COVID pandemic years, similar such deliberations to establish the primacy and prominence of the Indic intellectual thought. Today, when there is a lot of talk about Vikasit Bharat, Atmanirbhar Bharat, a lot of aspirations are happening. But then we at Rethink India try to think, and since thinking is one of the suffixes in our very establishment, that how we will become it. Would we be aping the other civilizations of the world, or do we have in ourselves our own dharma, our own chitti, on the power of which we can build up the larger edifice of whatever aspirations we are looking at it. Also, in the Indic pantheon, we have got four Purusharthas: Artha, Dharma, Artha, Kam, and Moksha. And economics, it matches very closely to Artha. So we felt that economics is just 1/4 of the entire quad of it all. एंड जैसा कि भारत को विश्व गुरु के रूप में एक सनातन काल से हम लोग प्रतिष्ठित देखते हुए आए हैं, इंडिया हैज दैट पोजिशनिंग अक्रॉस द ग्लोबल इंटेलेक्चुअल्स एज वेल, दैट इंडिया हैज अ वॉइस ऑफ आवर ओन. सो वी फेल्ट दैट भारत का जो शिक्षा का स्वरूप है, शिक्षा संस्कार की जो एक गहरी परंपरा हमारे इस देश में है, जो कि न केवल विद्यालयों में, विश्वविद्यालयों में, जबकि हमारे घर और परिवारों में भी, हमारे समाज में भी शिक्षा संस्कार की एक बहुत ही व्यापक परंपरा व्याप्त है. सो वी ट्राई टू सेट दैट एजुकेशन and especially the higher education as the encumbrance of resilient economic development. Today, as we see that it is an age of VUCA, volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. It is all engulfing us like anything, and within a couple of hours, the world changes. Incidents happens at Delhi airport, gets choked down, and all the flights emanating from the various airports, they are affected out there. So in this ultra connected world, this VUCA factor which is out there, and so to have a resilient economic development, higher education we are seeing as an encumbrance. So that remains the underlying theme of it all. And today's inaugural, we are so very privileged to have two very eminent savants who would be gracing us, who would be illumining us with the original Indic thought. क्योंकि अर्थ का जो उद्भव है वो कहीं ना कहीं हमारी संस्कृति, हमारी सभ्यता के अधिष्ठान पर ही है. Today we all get inspired. Oh, these thoughts, these original thoughts were said at Davos, and Davos has become the kind of the moral compass or the intellectual compass of the whole world. In our own small, very humble way, we at Rethink India, sitting under the, I would say, majestic Himalayan settings. It's the two worldviews which are out there, the worldview of the Alps and the worldview of Himalayas. We are connected to you from a Himalayan hamlet called Machkali. We just try to pose this question, especially to the Kulpatis, Kuladhipatis, our acharyas across, and people who have that very deeper intellectual moorings, that what are some of those actionable original ideas of Bharat of India, that is Bharat, which can have a global manifestations. We have the feeling of Ano Bhadra Krato Vishwantu Yata. We have been saying it that let noble thoughts come to us from all directions. But we do have a very, I would say, very intertwined, very elaborate intellectual traditions, and which somehow or the other have somewhere remained under a kind of a iceberg, which needs to be brought about their actionability, their impact on our socio-economic political processes all through. So we have been joined in by two very eminent savants for this inaugural day on Monday, 15th of January. Professor Shankar S. Mantha, who spearheaded India's technical education while being at the helm of All India Council of Technical Education, a very original thinker of his own, and as his name, Shankar, so he has tried in his own way to revive the learning traditions, the learning paradigms of Adi Shankaracharya. And we also have with us a very special, yet another scholar of Indic traditions and a practitioner of the modern motive in Sri M. Nageshwara Rao Garu, who in his very small stint as being the director, acting director of the Central Bureau of Investigation, the ACE anti-graft agency of the country. And after his tenure, people have been talking about that it became a kind of a Center Bureau of Integrity. So somewhere or the other, these two savants whom would be having the benediction today, and the central theme what we have submitted for their exhortations this evening, we can say that how we can inspire, how we can instill the confidence and faith in the youngsters about the comparative and competitive advantage of the civilizational antiquity of India, that is Bharat. Uh, uh, Through structured programs and evidences for bolstering the purpose of higher education at large, impregnating the spirit of critical inquiry and daring for commensurate action, channelizing the youthful energies and fascinations. So this theme, why we chose it, it was very important that very recently there has been a global mayhem, a kind of a global concern with the most modern advances in artificial intelligence, which is in one school of thought is saying that it is slated to take over the human thinking per se. We have all got so very reliant on the infinitum of the online reels, the kind of content which is being thrusted upon. So as the foundational aspect of education, that it prepares us for thinking originally, thinking, going to the root of things, thinking fruitfully. So somewhere or the other, this very function of education, be it Rethink India field, has been challenged in a big way with this latest advances of technology. So I think that these two savants who would be gracing us today, so we have posed this larger question in front of them, drawing from their immense experience and their vast evaluation of, I would say, the most modern technological advances, along with the Indic traditions, that what can be the way forward to instill the confidence and faith in India, that is Bharat, going forward. So first and foremost, I would like to invite Professor Shankar S. Mantha to initiate and yeah, I also welcome M. Nageshwara Garu, who has joined us. And so over to Professor Mantha to initiate the World Education Forum 2024, a man of exemplary integrity by his own right, and he has been revolutionizing the Indian educational thought long before he came at the helm of AICT. And ever since, the whole advances we are seeing, the technological advances, the genesis of it was in his short tenure of 2 years, 24 months to be exact. And it was in the months of January itself. So that is the kind of coincidence we are all having. So with this, I would request Professor S.S. Mantha to invoke the World Education Forum. Sir.
Good evening, Raghavji. And I mean, it's always amazing to listen to your, talk and your passion for education. And over a period of time, I have the number of times that I have interacted with you. It's always a pleasure to do that. So it's the same this evening. First of all, thank you for inviting me. Uh, I mean, there are several things that can be talked about. Education is actually multifaceted, and what facet would one want to talk about or think about is contextual, and therefore today's context I would probably set in a slightly different manner. So, like I said, the context setting for such a subject is extremely important. I mean, there are a lot of things that people talk about while discussing education. It's always interesting to discuss education because it cuts across uh, you know, uh, all the components of a society as we understand. First of all, it's very diverse. It's very large system that we have. More than 1,000 universities, 45,000 institutions. In the higher education space, we have almost 40 million students enrolled today. But unfortunately, even that 40 million enrolled in the higher education space gives only 27 GER, which means a large number of people are still sitting outside, to get into the higher education space. Now, they cannot do that for various reasons. More important of them is the financial problem that they all have to face. And perforce, they have to work, and therefore they cannot go to colleges, and so on. So that's uh, one drawback that we have in the system, that we have not been able to reach it to everyone over 75 years of our independent nation. Now, having said that, I'm not going to describe education per se today. I have something else in mind. But in order to do that, there is a small preamble that I'm trying to create. Our universities must actually do the deductive part of learning for us, which meaning they tell us the concepts, they tell us the truths of life, and we need to analyze, we need to deduce, and so on. That's the fundamental job of a university, where a student is given a ability to deduce from things that are informed within the university. Now, obviously, that must be value based. But this value based business I'll come to a little later. The second part of our education is experiential learning, which happens on the job. And therefore, today people talk about internships, they built in seamlessly into the education system, and so on. But however, what is important to note here is the education system today is laying great emphasis on placements, as though that's the only end result that we are looking at. And an institution is also ranked on the ability to place 100% of its students. Now, whether that's right, wrong, is for debate. It's for a larger debate. But then a university was never built to guarantee jobs. A university was never built to, to actually say that you'll be employed at so and so salary. Recently, we hear the IIT graduates and some of the other institutions as well getting more than a crore of rupees, salaries. Now, is that the primary function of a university? I don't know. Then the industry to which these students are going, that's also transforming. You have also mentioned about artificial intelligence and so on. I'm not so much as enamored by AI per se, because AI always existed right from 1950 in our system. And the first, chatbot, AI-based chatbot, was developed by MIT. Joseph Rosenbaum in MIT, and this was it was called Eliza, and it was a conversational style, chatbot that actually was a precursor and almost 60 years back. But what is important about AI is the generative part and the regenerative AI, which is much more, complicated, or it complicates our life much more than what we actually see today. The strategic management, the digital strategy development, digital transformation, applications of AI, these are all the things that which people are interested in today, in purely in terms of making a career, in terms of an employment and so on. So based on these perspectives, the contours of teaching and learning have been changing. From a purely faculty-centric system, we are moving into a student-centric system and probably into a self-learning mode of system. Whereas the faculty were actually teachers at one point of time, today they have to transform into guides, into mentors, handhold. There's a lot of information available out there in the on the internet, on the third-party platforms, and so on. So, what is the teacher's role now? He has to become a guide, he has to become a mentor, tell the student where to find the right information, differentiate between what is right and wrong, and that happens to be the sole purpose today of a teacher. Then we have all kinds of designer courses, and the students can design their own courses, their own degrees. All this is a part of NEP and the detailing that is required to make it real. Then we have, several, not everything can be taught in a university. So therefore, there are, micro credentials, fractional credits available, where short programs, short courses of 15 minutes, 20 minutes of fractional credits can be accumulated. And therefore, the journey of education goes. In all this process, technology is the enabler and digital transformation is the key. So the entire education space, like an industry, though we don't still consider education as an industry, not in that sense, because it's still not for profit entity. So therefore, digital transformation has transcended even into education, and therefore a lot of technology is happening in terms of how we deliver education. Therefore, what happens is learn, unlearn, skill, reskill, upskill. These things become extremely important as we go along. Now, all these initiatives have probably given us a one-dimensional learning, and therefore our students, be it whatever discipline they are in, whether they are in engineering or arts or science or whatever, it is all simply one-dimensional learning, and they only probably know what they have learned in the college and nothing beyond that. So therefore, lack of empathy, lack of compassion, no sense of community and understanding for others, and which actually leads to social conflicts, division, in life and things like that. So therefore, what is required? We'll go further. So let's adopt a value-based education. Now that is the theme of my part today. I've just created a preamble where a lot of things are happening in education that people will keep talking to you about that. But what I'm doing today, probably people may not really talk about in that context. So therefore, what I have done here is Jivan Mulya is what I am interested in. What are the Mulya that we have to have in our life? So so there are several of them. I've listed some of them here: Shraddha, Udyamshilata, Nirbhayata, Satvikata, Jnana Yoga Sama, Danam, Yajna, Tapa, Dama, Rujuta, honesty, Swadhyaya, Paraninda, Ahimsa, Shanti, Daya, Jivan. These are all the values that we must look at in our life. Having said this, we'll go little further. It is very interesting to know how our, Puranas have evaluated, how our ancient systems have evolved over a period of time, and so on. Sri Ramam Vijayamarchavyam Satyameva Jayatyapi Yatra Yatra Raghunatha Kirtanam Tatra Tatra Krutamastakam Anjalim. Now, this is from Ramayana. Lord Rama is known for valor and righteousness. What this tells us is above everything else, whatever be your education, values of righteousness, values of truth, and the celebration of those virtues. It's not enough to have virtues, but we must be able to celebrate them. And that is what Rama stood for, and that is what we need to bring back into our education system. So we talk about value-based education. It aims at training the student to face the outer world with the right attitude and right values. So it, in a way, develops a personality. It includes character development, personality development. It includes citizenship development, and of course, spiritual development. Without that, it's extremely difficult to understand what life is. So therefore, what does all that constitute? Character building, ethical decision making, respect for diversity, empathy, compassion, leadership, responsibility. All these become extremely important for holistic development. Now, this is a figurative expression of what these characteristics of values are. Now, like you said in the beginning, the spirit of education is that noble thought should come to us from all the sides. Ano bhadra krutavo yantu vishwato adabdaso aparitasa buddhida devano yatha sadmit vruddhe asannaprayavo rakshitaro dive dive. Now, what says is हमारे पास चारों ओर से ऐसे कल्याणकारी विचार आते रहे जो किसी से न दबे, उन्हें कहीं से बाधित न किया जा सके, एवं अज्ञात विषयों को प्रकट करने वाले हो, प्रगति को न रोकने वाले हो और सदैव रक्षा में तत्पर हो, तो देवता प्रतिदिन हमारी वृद्धि के लिए तत्पर रहे. Now this is the overall concept of higher education. Now, when we talk about education, within the universities, we only talk about one-dimensional education. Now, what is that? Dve vidye veditavye iti asmaya brahma vido vadanti para cha apara cha tatra ya devi sa uparishadanti tasyam amrutamahu sa yetasmin anannamatyo havai. Dve vidya, there are two kinds of education that are there in this world, and we must look at both of them. Tatra yadevi sa uparishadante tasyam. The two types of education that we have is paravidya and aparavidya. The knowledge of the finite, which we do in the university, which we do in our institutions, it is finite. It has got limits. There are boundary conditions under which it operates, and therefore aparavidya is what we study in this world. We don't study about paravidya in our universities. What is paravidya? It is the what you learn outside the education, the university system. Now they speak that as the supreme goal. Amrutamau sa etasmin anannamatyo havaiti. So that is the spirit of education. Now let's look at higher education, how it shapes individuals and so on. So like I said, it is multifaceted. So skill development, critical thinking, analytics, problem solving, research, innovation, personality growth. These are all the general skills that we talk about: lifelong learning, cultural, artistic appreciation, leadership. All these things happen in some form or the other. In fact, there is a McKinsey report which says that instead of one skill which you get in the university, as in the form of your degree or diploma or whatever, you also need one more skill, two skills you need to survive in the complex world that we have today. The other skill can be anything. It could be your singing abilities, it could be your foreign language ability, or it could be anything. And the report says that you never know when you need the second skill to make a living. So that's the kind of skill context that we are setting. There are some simple values in life. Satyam vada, speak the truth. Dharmam chara, follow the righteousness. Sadhya atma pramadaha, do not neglect self-study. Do not indulge in lazy. Swadhyayatma pramadaha. And acharyaya priyam, respect your teachers. Dhanamarjavam manamevacha, value honesty when you are earning money. And straightforwardness, prioritize knowledge. Dhanamarjavam manamevacha. So emphasize core values, truth, righteousness. All these are important values in life. So how do we instill confidence and faith? Instilling confidence and faith in youngsters about the comparative and competitive advantages involves a multifaceted approach that combines education, positive messaging that you do, and exposure to various aspects of the country's strengths. So you need to bring all these issues into your education system by cultivating the spirit of critical inquiry and daring for commensurate action. Educators, mentors, communities, they can empower the youth. And then education must also teach religious diversity, art, architecture, classical, folk traditions, cuisines, textiles. This will allow the students to know about their own country, language, literature, yoga, Ayurveda, festivals, celebration. All this must be taught. Now, while India possesses several of these advantages, it also has several, challenges facing, and that must be addressed through, community-based, initiatives and so on. Now, all this helps channelize the enthusiasm and energies into endeavors that make a positive and lasting impact on the world around them. Now, moving further, what I have is, in order to be a good citizen, it's very necessary that mind control is there. So, uddhared atmanam na atmanam avasadayet atmaiva hayatmanu bandhuratmaiva ripuratmanu. Uddhared atmanam. Elevate yourself. Uddhar means you elevate yourself, atmanam, through the power of your mind. Na atmanam avasadayet, and not degrade yourself. Don't avasadayet, don't degrade itself. Atmaiva hayatmano bandhuratmaiva ripuratmana. So for the mind it can be bandhu and it can also be ripura, which means enemy. So that is how mind control is required, because we see people, going into depression, committing all kinds of crime and things like that. And it's very necessary that mind control is required. And Bhagavad Gita has this shloka to tell us. Then schools and universities, what should they teach? They should teach India's achievements, include comprehensive, accurate information about historical, cultural, scientific, and so on, our achievements. Promote a positive narrative. Don't get into the negative. Every country has a negative side, but don't get into the negative side as though that is the most important one. Encourage a positive and optimistic narrative about India's potential. Showcase examples of, the successful people, innovations, initiatives that we have had, and so on. Now, it is very necessary to push human values into the system. Now, Satyam Eveshwaro Loke, Satyam Ishwaro Loke Satye Dharma Sadashripa. सत्य ही संसार में ईश्वर है. सत्यम ईश्वरो लोके. एंड धर्म भी सत्य को ही आश्रित है. सत्य धर्म सदाश्रित. सत्यम मूलानि सर्वाणि सत्यान नास्ति परम पदम. सत्य ही समस्त भव विभव का मूल है और सत्य से बढ़कर और कुछ नहीं है. So this is something that we get from Mahabharata. In Rigveda, Kotaram Tarbhavo Vahini Tarumekam Drishyati Kuputrasya Kule Jataha Swakulam Nasyet Patram, which means that if you burn a stick, only the stick will burn itself. But if you do spoil a child, it spoils the entire dynasty. So therefore, it's very necessary that values are inculcated in the child. And there is one that was from Rigveda, and Ramayana has some extremely succinct way of telling how women should be respected. This is a very important value system that students must have. Naham janami keyure. Lakshmana says, when he was asked how was Sita, how could I identify? Naham janami keyure. Lakshmana says he cannot identify the ornaments. Keyura he cannot identify. Naham janami kundale. The earrings I cannot identify. Nupuram abhijanami nityam padabi vandana. I can only identify the ring that is there on the feet, because I was only looking at the pada, which is her feet. So which means that there is a great sense of respect that is attached to women, and that is a value system which must be taught to our children in schools, universities, and so on. Now, while doing all this, there is a great debate on whether Sanskrit should be there, not there, things like that. But personally, I think Sanskrito Deva Bhasha, Ya Tvaya Vyadhupita, Tvaya Cha Sarvabhi Shastre Jagatam, Swargapa Vargayo. Sanskrit is a language of gods. Ya Tvaya Vyadhupita. From this, from through you, Saraswati, everything else has come, like sciences were created, and Shastra Jagatam, Swargapa Vargayo. Heavens were created, everything was created out of that. So therefore, Sanskrit is important in that sense. Now, we need our children to be exposed to diverse perspectives, encourage entrepreneurship, innovation, emphasize diversity, inclusivity. These are all discussed in various forms in our universities even today. But then the spirit behind them is somewhere lost. So therefore, we need to understand what this diverse perspective is, what is entrepreneurship, what is innovation. There can be disruptive innovation, and there can also be innovative disruption. Now, both must be understood and used effectively within the universities' learning paradigms. So, you must invest in education, skill development, promote civic engagement, social responsibility. Students must also have an international exposure to understand the other perspective, and so on. So these are some of the things that the universities probably are doing, but they also must look at the the connect that these things have with the value systems. The mentorship programs, this celebrate cultural identity, these are very, very important. And while doing all this, we can highlight the competitive advantage. We have a demographic dividend. Our children are very young. I mean, 29 is the median age. Information technology, IT and ITES services are extremely well developed in this country. Our pharmaceutical industry is extremely developed today. And you know what we have been capable of doing during the COVID times. Then our skilled workforce is extremely, innovative outside. We have an edge over English over the other countries, and entrepreneurship and startups is something that is being promoted by the government very actively. And we have a diverse economy, we are a cultural soft power, we have renewable energy potential. Out of 365 days, 300 days we have sun. So there is a lot of potential for renewable energy, and that's something that we use. Our strategic geopolitical position is extremely important. Space and science achievements is something that we have been seeing in the recent past. We have already landed on the far side of the moon, and we have also sent a probe on the Mars, and probably Gaganyaan will pitchfork us into something of a different level. Agricultural strength, cultural and heritage tourism is something that is picking up very fast. Now, what are the ornaments that should adorn a student or a person, for example, not just a student, everybody must have this. This is Bhartrahari Subhashitam. Aishwaryasya Vibhushanam. Might is ornamented by benevolence. Aishwaryasya Vibhushanam Sujanata. Sujanata is benevolence. Shauryastak Vaksamyamam. Heroism, Shaurya, Vaksamyam, which means that restraint in speech will adorn my Shaurya. ज्ञानस्योपशमा श्रुतस्य विनयो वित्तस्य पात्रे व्ययः अक्रोधस्तपसः क्षमा प्रभवितुर्धर्मस्य निर्व्याजता सर्वेषामपि सर्वकारणमिदं शीलं परं भूषणम्. Out of everything else, like for example, knowledge is adorned by patience, fame by humility, wealth by donating suitably, ascetic practice by controlling anger, akrodastapasa kshama, and please, Lord, by ability to give, you should be able to donate, and religious practice by honesty. But only good conduct, Sheelam Param Bhushanam, only good conduct is the best ornament any person can have. These are the qualities by which a student must be defined. Now, Yogastak, kuru karmani sangha tyaktva dhananjaya siddha siddhayo samo bhutva samatvam yoga. Perform your duties. When we do all these things, there is a problem of success and failure. Students always feel that I should only keep succeeding. That's not life. Success and failure are the same things of a coin, two sides of the same coin. Therefore, yogastha kur karmani sangatyaktva dhananjaya. In again, Krishna says, "Oh Arjuna, while remaining detached from success or failure, such equanimity in face of both success and failure is what is required." So, so therefore, we come to learning and dedication and how to get peace in life. Shraddhavan labhate jnanam tatpara sannatendriya jnanam labdhva param shantima achirenadi gachati. With faith and dedication, Shraddhavan labhate jnanam tattara. One gains knowledge. And with a subdued mind, jnanam labdhva param shantim achirenadi gachati. Having acquired knowledge, one attains supreme peace finally, before long. So there are several things that were happening. In order to do all this, we must revisit our old traditions. I go back to Shankaracharya, reinvent his pedagogy and andragogy, how he used to teach children and how he used to teach adults. There were several pedagogies that he was using. They are used even today in the four matas of Shankaracharya. And incidentally, all the four matas were based on the four Vedas that we have. So Shravana Vidhi is listening attentively to what Guru says. These pedagogies that I'm describing here are still followed in those matas. Manana Vidhi, meditating over what Guru teaches. Nididhyasa Vidhi is a method of reaching conclusions. Prashnottara Vidhi is a question-answer method. I ask a question, you tell me the answer, and so on. Tarka Vidhi is a method of analyzing. Vyakhya Vidhi is exposition, tika, commentary that you write. And Adhyaropa Apavada Vidhi is a projection method where the student is taken from real to the unreal world and from unreal world to the real world. Drishtanta Vidhi is difficult things are taught by illustrations and so on. Katha Kathana Vidhi, the student is a storytelling methodology which we have completely forgotten. And Upadesha Vidhi is a lecture method used in the Advaita Vedanta of Shankaracharya, practiced by students. And these are the methods which we must revisit and bring back. Unfortunately, what has happened is our entire system is, our universities and so on, have chosen to discard everything except the first and the last, the Upadesha Vidhi and Shravana Vidhi. So these are the problems, and therefore we need to revisit all that back. So how do we get happiness? The entire understanding of education, the entire knowledge is something where we should, have happiness at the end of the day. There are several domains of happiness. There is a psychological well-being, there is material well-being, there is, arts, culture, education, community, health, social. These are all various facets of happiness, but there must be a balance of things which will ultimately bring us the happiness, and that only comes from the value system that you have. Now, this is something that happens in our lives all the time without values. What is this? You just look at this slide. It's extremely interesting. Now, I have a desire. I say I really want this. This is the desire. Then I satisfy the desire. Something happens. My desire is satisfied. Then I get happiness. So I say I got it. I got happiness. Then after some time it fades. And then I have a new desire. Then I really want this, and this keeps going on. This is called a hedonistic treadmill. It's like a treadmill where I keep on going on that treadmill without any happiness, without any direction in. And this leads to depression, this leads to crime, this leads to, and so on. So finally, there's just about 2-3 slides now. See, alasasya kuto vidya, avidyasya kuto dhanam, adanyasya kuto mitram, amitrasya kuta sukham. While following that hedonistic, treadmill, while understanding that The other end of that is you should not become lazy and lose sight of what you're doing as well. So one who is lazy, alasasya kuto vidya. If you are lazy, you won't put in efforts to acquire knowledge. Avidyasya kuto dhanam, you won't get money. Adanyasya kuto mitram, you won't get friends. Amitrasya kuto sukam, so you won't get happiness. So it is a, instead of the hedonistic treadmill, you follow this mill where you get vidya, you get dhanam, you get friends, you get happiness. So coming back to that paravidya that I talked about, satyan na pramaditavyam, dharmam na pramaditavyam, kusalan na pramaditavyam. Pramaditavyam meaning the wander not, don't go away from that. Pramaditavyam, bhutyai na pramaditavyam, satyan na pramaditavyam, meaning do not go away from truth. Dharman na pramaditavyam, wander not from righteousness. Kusalan, which means personal and social welfare. Bhutyai, which means from prosperity. Swadhyaya and pravachana abhyam na pramaditavyam. Do not go from learning and teaching. And deva pitra karyam na pramaditavyam. And do not go from your duties to the God, abhayam, and to the ancestors, pramaditavyam. So it's like that. Deva pitra karyabhyam na pramaditavyam. Now, these are all, good values and things which we will keep talking about. This is a part of Taittiriya Upanishad, and it tells you a lot. And what the guru must actually teach a student is what is mentioned there. Finally, Ayam Nija Paroveti Ganana Laguchetasa Udara Charitanam tu Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. This is the ultimate of education. This is mine. I am Nija. Paroveti Ganana Laguchetasam. That is someone else's. Now, this is Udara Charitanam tu Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. Is the thought of the Ganana Laguchetasam, is the thought of the narrow-minded. And for those with a noble spirit, Udara Charitanam to Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. For them, for those with Udara Charita, the whole world is the family. Now, that is what I have for you today. And this is where you can reach me. And finally, I just want to highlight the fact that, yes, we are teaching a lot of things in education. Our universities probably are doing the best that they can with the infrastructure that they have, with the facilities that they have, and so on. But somewhere there is a little bit of concern that they are tending to make us one-dimensional. And what I am talking about is making a student a complete individual, and that is possible only with values. Now, that is what I have tried to highlight. Thank you so much for giving me the opportunity. Thank you.
Dr. Mantha, what he has given the whole program of Bharatiyata, of a Hindu system of education in his, I would say, 20 odd slides. He has given the whole substance of it all. And teachers in their classrooms can really pick them up. The whole is Shankaracharya Vidya Padhyati. Nothing stops a educator in a classroom to do that. So perhaps at a national level, there might be challenges, but I would come to Dr. Mantha as to what an educator in his or her classroom can really adopt and adapt and really allay the concerns what Nageshwara Garu has talked about it, because we have to move towards some solutions. The adhishthan is there, the whole content is there, the concerns are quite valid. हम रास्ता कहाँ से बनाएं? I think Professor Mantha is a man of sneaking through and making way for things. So over to him, sir.
Yeah, I mean, today we are probably caught in a system where it's not possible to go back in time, like Nageshwaraji said. But having said that, we probably need to adapt the current systems, the best practices that we know of, and the current best practices that the world uses. All of them must come together along with an element of Bharatiyata, the understanding of the value systems that we have, and we should revisit many of those, ideas, concepts, but apply them to the technology that exists. So, for example, regenerative AI, you know, is extremely useful in translating. For example, today ChatGPT is available in 18 different languages. I mean, you ask a question, it replies back in the same language. Now, unfortunately, the language that it uses, if you have seen the translations, they are nothing great about. In fact, much of it is twisted, much of it is, you know, not acceptable to a guy who actually understands the local language. So therefore, there is a but what we need to appreciate is that there is a tool which can be used, which can be molded to the current requirements and so on. So that's just one aspect that I have said. The There is a difference between what is happening, what was happening earlier, and what is happening now. The Everybody's ultimate is to know the truth. The ultimate of education is to know the truth. There can be multiple pathways to know the truth. The Western world has always believed on the materialistic part. So they looked at science, they looked at evidence, and everything was evidence based. So which means that if I don't see, I don't believe. But the Indian system, the ancient systems that we have had, even the current systems which are rooted in our ancient culture, it believed in the root was spiritual in nature. So therefore, the ideas, the concepts, the entire thinking is very different for us. But as I said, the ultimate goal is the same, to realize the Brahman, whether it's the Atma, the soul, or the body, whether they are same, they are different. These are the kind of questions which they also answer, which we also answer. Consciousness, awareness, your self awareness, these are the eternal questions that we have. Now, quantum computing, which will become a reality in another 2 years, probably time, we will have the quantum computing on our tables, which will spew a lot of possibilities for development, for new innovations, new inventions, and knowing in general what we are and what the planet is, or what the universe is, what the cosmos is, things like that, questions like that. So understanding that our approach can be different, but the truth is the same, whether it's the Western culture or the Indian culture, that must be the point of debate, and how we can reach the same route through different approaches. Probably that's the crux of the problem. Thank you.